By the end of today's episode, you'll know all about Christopher Walken, who has been in so many movies, and what he did to become the superstar actor that he is today. Welcome to the Actor's Career Compass, where we help aspiring screen actors find high-quality auditions, sign with great agents, and book major roles in legit productions. I'm your host, Martin Benson, and today we're going to dive deep on Christopher Walken, who starred in lots of films, including Pulp Fiction, Annie Hall, A View to a Kill, even some crazy comedies like Balls of Fury. We're going to discuss how he was able to build his career from dancing, which is how he started, into becoming a household movie actor name. I'm going to also share some takeaways that you can apply to your own acting career. So Christopher Walken was actually born named Ronald Walken. He was born in 1943 in Queens, New York. Now, his mother was actually in show business, and she did all that she could to get him and his brothers to act and perform. So he wound up being most interested in dance, and he had performed in a lot of different musicals. Now, as he got a bit older, he was convinced by a nightclub dancer that he should change his name to Christopher. This dancer was someone that he kind of maybe had a little bit of a crush on, and she said that the name Christopher just kind of sounded more distinctive and it suited him well. So he wound up going with it, and it was at that point when he changed his name that sort of marked the end of his childhood career and began the start of his adult professional career working in dance and acting. So he performed in a lot of theatrical productions, musicals in particular for dance, which allowed him to learn more about acting. And eventually he booked an off-Broadway production. And from there, continuing, he wound up getting lucky and booking his first Broadway production. And during the 60s and 70s, he decided at that point that he wanted to start considering working in film and television. So he started doing a lot of very little roles here and there. And one of those small roles that he wound up being lucky enough to book was playing a small character in the film Annie Hall by Woody Allen. And because that film was a comedy, but his character, named Dwayne, was supposed to be a more serious and eccentric and brooding type of character, it stood out. And it got noticed by a number of industry professionals, especially since Annie Hall became such a major success. A lot of people watched and were interested in this brooding, serious character that he played amidst the comedic film. Michael Cimino, the director of the film called The Deer Hunter, noticed the performance, and he invited Christopher Walken to audition for the role of Nick in that film. And after seeing his audition and basically knowing what Christopher Walken was capable of because of the other productions that he'd been in, Michael decided to make the decision of casting him. So, in order to prepare for the role, not only did Christopher Walken do a ton of work on the character and script breakdown and choices, but he also lost a significant amount of weight to suit the character better. The role was supposed to be a young soldier who was suffering from severe psychological trauma from the Vietnam War. And so the preparation that he did added a lot to the depth and complexity of his performance. And his performance was so strong that he went on to win an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in that film. And of course, from there, the sky's the limit, right? So while patience and persistence and strong training are important, I think that there is another key lesson here. Christopher Walken took every role very seriously. No matter how small the role, he knew that performing authentically and deeply understanding the character, and even going way beyond by losing weight and changing his appearance, it would show how seriously he takes acting, and he would create such a strong performance that he might get noticed down the line, which would create new opportunities for himself. And of course, this was particularly true for his role in Annie Hall. Had he not performed so well, he likely would have never been invited to audition for The Deer Hunter, which was the role that made him famous. But the same is also true with what he did once he did get the role of The Deer Hunter. Of course, that resulted in that Academy Award, which led to endless more opportunities. Now, even though there's going to be tons of small independent films at the beginning, if you approach each one with an attitude of making the absolute most of it, right? And I talked about this in a few previous actor success stories like this one, right? So if you approach each one with an attitude of how do I make the most out of this, one thing is going to lead to the next. At bare minimum, you're going to have a much more powerful reel. But if you don't take any booking for granted, again, just because you book the role does not mean that you can slack off or put all that work on the director, right? So the audition is just the first step. But taking every role extremely seriously and bringing your own unique personality to it, that is pretty much a guaranteed role for people to notice and for you to book bigger and bigger roles over time. So thanks for listening. Now, if you want to dive even deeper on acting technique and how to perform better, I highly recommend checking out my podcast called Getting a SAG-AFTRA Agent, Is Your Technique Good Enough?, which is episode number 20. You're going to learn a lot and have a much better understanding of what it takes to perform in a way that gets noticed by high-level casting directors and agents. Check it out. Again, episode number 20, Getting a SAG-AFTRA Agent, Is Your Technique Good Enough?, on the Actor's Career Compass. Finally, if you'd like to get some personalized advice, let's hop on a quick Zoom call. I'd love to take a look at where you are, what you're struggling with, and help you figure out the best next steps to take. We'll see if one of my one-to-one coaching programs might be a good fit for you. Whenever you're ready, just visit martinbenson.com to set it up. I would love to meet with you. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.